In the quiet suburbs of Wisconsin, mornings are often wrapped in silence, broken only by the crunch of boots on frostbitten pavement. The sun barely pierced the overcast sky as Lucas, 17, laced his worn-out boots and pulled a scarf tight around his neck. The wind already howled through the trees. It was 6:30 a.m., before most alarms had gone off, before school buses started their routes. Lucas opened the door and stepped into the cold. He had somewhere to be. Not because it was expected, but because deep down it felt like the only thing that still made sense. Every day Lucas walked 5 miles, just under an hour each way, through sleet, snow, and bitter wind, and he did it for one reason: to visit his best friend Ryan, who lay in a hospital bed battling a cancer that refused to let up. The nurses began to expect him. The security guards stopped checking his name. Lucas wasn't family, but he might as well have been. He never missed a day, not for tests, not for weather, not even for his own exhaustion. The walk became a ritual, a silent vow. His way of saying, "You're not doing this alone." Their story began in 2nd grade. 2 boys thrown together by alphabetical seating who quickly became inseparable. Sleepovers turned into traditions. Inside jokes only they understood. Halloween costumes that matched year after year. Ryan had the wild ideas, racing shopping carts, prank-calling their math teacher. Lucas kept them grounded, cautious, but never far behind. Their friendship wasn't loud. It wasn't something they ever explained. It just was. The kind that doesn't need permission or rules. It just grows alongside you until it becomes part of who you are. By the time they were juniors, everything had changed. Ryan had always been healthy, strong, athletic, full of energy. But then came the fatigue, the bruises that didn't go away, the blood tests, the word no teenager expects to hear: leukemia. Classes turned into doctor appointments. Gym class became IV drips. At first their friends came in waves, group visits, get-well cards, social media posts, but eventually the calls slowed. Teenagers have their own lives to live after all. But Lucas stayed, and when hospital stays became weeks, he adjusted his world around Ryan's, because leaving just didn't feel like an option. Winter in Wisconsin is unforgiving. There were mornings when Lucas walked with his head down, snow slicing across his cheeks like glass. His scarf would freeze to his breath, his socks would soak through. Cars passed by, headlights glowing, some slowing to offer a ride. He always declined, not out of pride, but purpose. "The walk clears my head," he'd later say. "It's the only part of the day that's just mine. And I need him to know he's worth the journey." That walk became his silent protest against everything he couldn't control. In the sterile brightness of Ryan's hospital room, there were no grand speeches, no dramatic outbursts. Some days they talked about dumb YouTube videos or made fun of their old teachers. Other days, Ryan didn't have the strength to speak, so Lucas would read aloud, books, comics, their old texts, or he'd just sit, their hands resting close. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He knew he couldn't. He was simply there. And somehow that presence filled the room more than any words could. One gray afternoon, as snow fell steadily outside the hospital window, Ryan opened his eyes slowly. His voice was barely more than a whisper, fragile like everything else in the room. "You're the only one who never left," he said. Lucas looked at him, really looked, and didn't try to say anything back. He just nodded once, fighting back tears, and reached for Ryan's hand. Because what could words do in a moment like that? Sometimes, presence speaks louder than anything. The days continued, the weather worsened, school piled up, life outside the hospital never stopped. But Lucas didn't slow down. He never posted about it, never mentioned it in class. The teachers didn't know. His classmates had no idea. It wasn't about being seen, it was about being there. Over time, the nurses began leaving a chair ready for him. The front desk stopped asking his name. Lucas wasn't trying to be noble. He was just holding on to a friendship that mattered more than anything else in his world. Then one morning in March, the hallway felt different, quieter, heavy. Lucas walked in with a familiar rhythm, coat dripping from the melted snow. But when he reached room 214, the bed was empty, the machines gone. Ryan's parents were there, their eyes red and tired. He had passed in the early hours, peacefully, they said. Lucas sat down in the chair he had occupied so many times before. He looked at the empty space where his best friend had fought for so long. No words came, just silence. And after a while Lucas stood up and walked home. The hospital walks ended, but Lucas kept walking. For weeks, maybe months. Same route, same streets. His feet still knew the way. He didn't tell anyone why. He just needed to move, to breathe, to remember. Sometimes he stopped at the hill where they used to sled as kids. Sometimes he walked to the park bench where they'd once mapped out their dream college. Grief doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about time. But in motion, in cold air, Lucas found a way to carry the weight, step by step. Years later, Lucas stood on a stage at a small fundraiser for pediatric cancer. He looked older, but the same steady quietness was still in his eyes. He didn't talk about the miles, or the snow, or the hospital. Instead, he simply said, "Friendship isn't always loud. It's not about fixing someone's pain. Sometimes it's just about walking beside them, over and over, until they know they're not alone." And for the first time in a long time, Lucas smiled, not because the pain was gone, but because he had honored it.